Um, Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the February 2025, what I'm calling the Gamay box, but perhaps it should be called the rock box or the soil box. The idea of this month is that we're going to use one variety. So it's Gamay, um, the kind of a feral, rustic, wild cousin of a Pinot Noir. So that's all four bottles this month is all Gamay, but they're all grown on different soil types from four different parts of the world. So the whole idea of this is, yeah, it's kind of geeky, kind of nerdy. The idea is to kind of talk about different soil types, different climate, kind of why it causes these different expressions in the wild, because these four are day and night in terms of what they are. They're four completely different wines, but they're all made from the exact same grape variety. Yeah, we're gonna get a little geeky about it. But the whole idea was that a lot of you on this call right now, as well as the ones who are not on this call right now, you guys are part of the Beaujolais box. So to kind of taste Gamay from different parts outside of Beaujolais I thought it'd be a fun kind of supplemental box, as well as for those of you who never joined Beaujolais box before, maybe this is kind of cool little preview to see what it's like. But yeah, so know that all four bottles this month are all made from Gamay, but they're all grown in four different soil types from four different places. And then we'll talk about kind of what happens when grapes are grown on different soil types. Really, like we're delving into this kind of French concept of terroir, right? Like why does the place, there's a human factor there too, right? But climate, the soil, the production method, the farming method, all those things, how they change the final kind of style of the wine. So yeah, we're gonna get a little geeky, but here we are. Normally, I would lead off this being the first week of the month, lead off with my, guide to my name pronunciation, ground rules, and all of that. But we actually don't have any new members this month. So we don't need to do any of that. So we can just kind of go on with our usual thing that we do. So yeah. For those of you, I mean, you guys are all aware at this point, but the Case Club will go live tomorrow. So all the wines that we tasted last month will be featured there with a few other things in there, as well as the Beaujolais from the first 4 weeks of the Beaujolais box will also be featured there. So yeah, keep an eye out for it. All that will be going out tomorrow. Yeah. And last but not least, 6 Foot Wine Club is committed to donating 1% of its gross revenue to an organization whose mission statement aligns with our values. And this month I have chosen Miriam's Kitchen. They are a local DC-based organization. I have donated, I've worked with them in the past. I've done some events with them. Good organization, excellent organization. They do some excellent work. So if you want to find out more about what they do and donate alongside 6 Foot Wine, alongside the Wine Club, then the link is all there in the chat box. Go check it out. Any questions about anything I just went over before we get into the wine? Excellent. Hearing none, let's get into the wine. We're tasting this guy today. It is a 2023 Verdier-Logel Volcanique Cote de Forez is what we're tasting today. Yeah, they changed the, I guess it's La Volcanique. They changed the label actually from what they used to look like. But as you can imagine from the name, La Volcanique, this is a Gamay that's grown on volcanic soil. So we're going to talk about a lot of volcanic soil, what it does to the wine and all of that. But before we get into all of that, let's start with the map, because that's what we do. All right, here we go. There's a map of France. Right? Should look pretty familiar. We've been to France many times. Where we are is in Loire Valley. By the way, we have a lot of wines from Loire Valley, and I've said this many times. If somebody asks me if there's one region, wine region in the world where I would pick to drink the wine from there for the rest of my life, and I couldn't drink wine from anywhere else. Obviously, there's champagne. There's no doubts about it. But really, Loire Valley comes to my mind just because, as you can see, it's a very large area, right? It kind of covers the entire length of central part of France. Um, there's just so many very different styles. But so yeah, there's quite a few wines featured from Loire in this month's box. Um, in fact, outside of one, which is a Ludi that's made in Central Coast and California, I think the other three all come from Loire Valley. So yeah, we're basically in Loire Valley as well. So again, not only is it one Gamay, but it's all in the same kind of a region. I mean, it's a big, Loire is a big region, but it is also the kind of a one place in the world. So we're really talking about kind of different soil types and what it does. Yeah, it is a way for us to get rid of many different variables, factors that get into it. But anyways, where we are is really right here. So this area doesn't get much love or it doesn't get talked about. In fact, most people don't even think and know that this is part of Loire. It's not even part of a conversation about Loire. Even when we talk about Loire, it's kind of divided into, this is where the Muscadet comes from, right? Around the town of Nantes, on the Pine Nantes on the left. And then there's Anjou, which is around the town of Angers. And then there's Touraine, which is around the town of Tours. And then there's a central part, which is this is where all the Puy-Fumé, Sancerre, it comes from. So it's kind of divided into four, but really, if you were to, so this is a Loire River that runs through, right? Which is what defines the Loire Valley. That's what we call it, the valley. But Loire Valley, Loire River really comes all the way up through here, which is Auvergne, this area. Pretty close to Lyon, pretty close to the Beaujolais. And this is part of why I chose this particular wine as the first one to start off the week, because first week to start off the month, because we, for those of you, which are most of you, are doing Boj Box. Where in Boj Box we're 12 weeks, but we're just going just to the left here. So in Auvergne, there's this little pockets here. So this is Saint-Pourçant. For those of you who were here for the Mary Taylor's month, we featured their Saint-Pourçant, which is from this little part. But today, Rouennais, we featured wine from Rouennais here as well before in Six Wine Club. But here is where we are today. Cote de Forez is this little part in Auvergne is where we're talking about. So very, very close to Beaujolais. In fact, it's much closer to Beaujolais and Lyon, both in terms of soil type, geography. It is much closer and related to Beaujolais and Burgundy than it is to the rest of Loire, as you can see on this map. If you look a little more closely, like I was saying, this is what Loire looks like, right? This is Pine Nantais. This is where Muscadet comes from, Anjou-Saumur, Touraine, the center part, right? But down all the way here in Auvergne, of course, there's a little PDF sign is blocking it all, but this is where we are. Cote de Forez. This is Cote Rouennais, Saint-Pourçant, and then this is Cote de Forez. So this is where we are on the map. We're in France right now. Cote de Forez, this is where the Loire River originates. So I know this, you may, oh, sorry, let me go to this map. This is probably better. Yeah, so it originates from here. It flows all the way out, and then it dumps out into the Atlantic Ocean on this side. So this is the origination point on this side, and then it flows all the way through Auvergne and the rest of Loire, and it dumps out into the ocean on this side. It's a small and obscure kind of appellation where vineyards are far and few in between. But they're planted on the foothills and the hillsides of the volcanic mountains of the Massif Central. So Massif Central is kind of a plateau. It's like a geological plate that runs all the way through. It affects Burgundy. It affects Auvergne, obviously, Beaujolais as well, but going all the way through Loire Valley as well. So there's a very similar kind of geological shape that takes place. So there's some limestone that's going to be pushed out as we go through. There's some granite that comes through, but there's also volcanic soil that comes through here as well. This really infertile rocky soil, that volcanic soil combined with a cool climate. So, I mean, this is in the middle of the country, very inland, meaning it's continental climate here. We've talked a lot about both Beaujolais and Burgundy being a very marginalized climate here, very, very cold in the wintertime. So all of that combined here, it gives wines this very, very strong kind of mineral backbone. And part of the reason, and as the name La Volcanique may suggest, there's a lot of mineral influence here. As soon as I taste this wine for the very first time, and to be completely fair and transparent, I've known about this wine for a very long time. I've worked with this wine for years. But one of the things when I first tasted it, and the reason I liked it about it is that it is very stereotypical of what you would expect from wines that are grown in volcanic soil. Not just in Gamay around here, but like talk about Sicily, for example, right? Like Etna Mountain has like a very similar kind of a vibe. These very minerally dark stone fruits become much more blacker and darker rather than red berry and poppy and bright. So it's much more like a brooding kind of example of Gamay, and then we'll see that when we get to tasting it. The appellations law of Cote de Forez is mandates that Gamay is the sole grape. So anytime you see Cote de Forez, quite frankly, I started this wine. I've never seen another Cote de Forez in my life, in my career. But if you do come across a Cote de Forez wine, then know that it's Gamay. It's the only grape that's allowed here. There's no white, there's no rosé, there's no sparkling, there's nothing being made. The only thing legally allowed to have whenever you see Cote de Forez is a still red wine from Gamay. The nearest town, Saint Etienne, right here, is used to be a booming mining town, dominating the region through the 19th century. The miners, obviously, as any French workers and labor force may require, they require a lot of wine to work, to quench their thirst. So as late as 1930, there were 5,000 hectares planted right here in Cote de Forez. So it was quite actually significant. But today, there's less than 200 hectares, just to give you an example of an area that was once very popular, or area in terms of a little more significant in terms of production, but has kind of gone out of fashion. So that's where we are. Let's talk about what makes this. By the way, this is what Cote de Forez looks like. This is actually the town. This is a town that this winemaker lives in. This is actually their vineyard. So yeah, this is what it looks like. Domaine Verdier-Logel is the name of the winery. The certified organic biodynamic producer. They're kind of considered one of the OG, kind of one of the reference point makers for Cote de Forez. They have different vineyards planted the different grape varieties besides Gamay, but particularly with Gamay, they actually have both granite as well as volcanic, which is two things that really define Beaujolais, for those of you who are in the Beaujolais, right? Like Morgon, Cote de Pie, Cote de Brouilly. These things are Julienats. These things are defined by volcanic soil in their content. Rest of them are much more granite. But here in Cote de Forez, in the small parts, that they get both granite and volcanic. So they actually vinify Gamay, the ones that are grown on Gamay, as well as the ones that are grown on volcanic. This one is obviously the one that's grown on volcanic. So in a single producer, you can kind of get a sense of what happens when Gamay is grown on granite and a volcanic. So this is a fun producer to kind of taste through what happens to wines when it's grown on different soil type. But it's currently run by 4 people, but initially it was started by these 2. So Jackie, which is the dad over here, Odile, which is the mom over here, Jackie and Odile Logel. They were the first one who took over the family vineyards to vinify their own wines from Cote de Forez. His father used to farm grapes, but he didn't make his own wine. And he was the first one to decide to kind of bottle their own wines. This is his wife, who was part of the operation. It all started in 1992 when Jackie took over. His father-in-law, 8 hectares of Gamay in Cote de Forez. Gradually, they started growing the holdings. In 1997, Odile, the wife, Odile joined the husband and they started converting their vineyards to farming organic agriculture on their 15 hectares of vineyards at this point. So they grew from 8 hectares to 15, so almost doubled in 5 years. In 2013, this is their nephew, Maxime, joined the family business. And then he's part of these two really run the business now. But yeah, so he joined first in 2013. In 2019, Jackie retires, and then his daughter, Julie, over here. This picture really makes them look like they're like a couple, but they're not a couple. So this is a nephew of the parents. This is a daughter of the parents. So I guess they're cousins. And then Julie takes over the family business in 2019. They also were part of the process in 2000. So right after the Odile and Jackie took over, they're part of the association to actually get the appellation name Cote de Forez. So this appellation Cote de Forez has only been in existence since the year 2000. So it's about 25 years old at this point, quarter century, which is pretty new in all aspects of appellation system. But yeah, they were integral in terms of establishing Cote de Forez as its own appellation. They are diversifying their portfolio. So now they not only do they have Gamay, their Gamay, I have tasted their other ones as well, but their Gamay is really what stands out. But they also have planted unusual kind of grape varieties for this region. So they have Pinot Gris, Viognier, Gewurz, and Riesling as well, which is a pretty rare thing. Like when do you ever see these varieties outside of Rhone or Alsace? But the fact that they're planted in little places like Auvergne and making wines from it is a pretty rare thing. So anyways, that's who makes the wine. So this wine is 100% Gamay, grown on volcanic basalt soil. Basalt is essentially kind of a rocky soil, but there's some clay mixed in. So basalt soil has an average of about 25% of clay in there, which helps with the water retention. And whenever there's a clay or there's a water retention, obviously fruit profile goes up. So there's plenty of fruit here on this wine, and that's where it comes from, basalt. But where the volcanic really kicks in is that all the fruit profile, and we'll talk about this more when we get to tasting it, but the fruit profile is much darker. It's blacker fruit, not this bright red poppy fruit. Like next week, we're gonna taste Gamay grown on granite from Clisson, which is in the most western part of Loire Valley. So, and then you will see how much brighter and how much redder the fruit profile is. But because this is on volcanic, this is much darker, blacker, and also gives us a lot of this minerality and like in what I call rusticity. This wine doesn't feel very like refined, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that there's a lot of this kind of like a rough around the edges. It's not as elegant, so to speak, but not in a bad way. Again, and a lot of that comes from the volcanic soil. This is a semi-carbonic. So for those of you who are not in the Boj box, carbonic maceration. So we'll talk about that for a second. So most grape fermentation is a bacterial fermentation, meaning yeast, which is a bacteria, eats up all the sugar, and then it produces alcohol and CO2 as its byproduct. That's what makes wine. That's what makes beer. Any alcoholic fermented beverage, that's basically the formula that makes it happen. And it's all bacterial fermentation. But there's another technique of fermenting grapes called carbonic maceration, and it originated right here. Actually, not here, but in Beaujolais, which is just right next to it. The idea is that you put grapes in whole bunches, so you don't destem it. You don't destem the berries off the stems. You just put them gently, layer them in a vessel, usually in a cement tank, but it can be done in a stainless steel tank. It can be done in barrels. It can be whatever. So you layer them gently, and then you put a blanket of carbon dioxide on top. And carbon dioxide is heavier than oxygen. So it just kind of blankets it all and it puts the grape berries in an anaerobic state, meaning lack of oxygen. There's no oxygen there. And when you put grape bunches in an anaerobic state, they start to ferment in an enzymatic way, meaning that all the enzymes from the inside the berries start to kind of ferment all the sugar, and then they'll produce CO2, and then those CO2 will expand the berries and they'll pop because there's too much pressure and all the juice will flow out. Then it will mix with the bacteria, the yeast on the grape skins, and the fermentation will continue to go on. So that process is called carbonic maceration, and it basically it didn't originate, but it basically became the big thing right here in Beaujolais, right next to the neighbor to Cote de Forez. So this is semi-carbonic, that's full carbonic. So when you actually put a blanket of CO2 on top of the grapes. And the reason why you do that is to it's all about the kind of purity of the fruit. When you want just a like really poppy, bright fruitiness of the fruit without extracting the phenolics, the tannins, the kind of the green savory flavors of the vine part of the grapevine, essentially. You don't want that. You just want the fruit. Usually you put it on carbonic maceration. So these wines will be less tannic. They'll usually be lighter in color because you're not extracting all that stuff from the grape berries. Again, this is a technique that was popularized here in Beaujolais. But stylistically, when you put wines on carbonic maceration, you get not only the pure fruit, but the fruit quality also changes. So you get a lot of this kind of poppy, bright, we call it high tone, which is almost like an artificial flavors. So like strawberry versus, you know, I don't know, Twizzlers strawberry, or like a Starburst strawberry. Like those strawberries are not strawberries. They're not natural strawberry flavors, but we all know what that strawberry tastes like, right? And a lot of carbonic maceration pops up a lot of the high tone fruit. And then whenever you hear wine nerds and geeks talk about high tone fruit, that's what they're talking about. What they're talking about is basically like these really artificial, almost candied fruit kind of a nature. And there's another technique which is blends between carbonic maceration and regular maceration fermentation method called semi-carbonic. So you do the same thing. You take the whole bunches, you stack them gently, not to break the berries, and then but you don't put blanket of CO2. You just kind of leave it with an ambient temperature. So there's a presence of oxygen, but because the berries haven't been popped and there's no sugar being mixed with the yeast, it starts an enzymatic, intercellular enzymatic fermentation. So the berries start fermenting from the inside, goes out, pops, and then it mixes it with the yeast on the skins and starts fermenting again. And so semi-carbonic is just kind of the way of doing the carbonic maceration, but not fully going into the full carbonic. And as those of you who are in the Beaujolais box know, the semi-carbonic and the full carbonic wines are very different in this expression. Like a full carbonic macerated Beaujolais tastes poppy, bright, red fruit, that high tone, candy kind of things going on. Semi-carbonic has some of that, but you get a lot more darker. It's not as high tone. The fruit quality is much actually natural, but not necessarily that it's better. It's just different. But you also get a lot more actual phenolic structure. So you got more tannin, you got more color, and things like that. So this is a semi-carbonic with about 2/3 of the fruit whole clusters. So only about 2/3 of it goes through semi-carbonic. The other third goes through regular maceration. Maceration lasts about 11 days. And then they do it all in stainless steel tank. So there's no oak, no cement, none of it. This is all about just kind of the purity of the fruit. So matured in tank until spring, and then it's bottled with a minimum of sulfites, no filtration, no fining is what we have here. Any questions? I know those of you, which is a lot of you, who are in Beaujolais box, you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about carbonic maceration. But for those of you who are not in Beaujolais box, or even if you are in Beaujolais box, does that make sense? Like what I'm just talking about in carbonic maceration I know that could be quite confusing if you're not familiar with that term. And what I realized is what I should have done is have one of you who's in Bojibak explain what carbonic maceration is, because I would love to hear how you explain carbonic maceration to your friends. That'd be hilarious to watch. But... All right. Well, hearing no questions.
Private. I just say if we say these magic words, we'll like the wine.
That's fair. All right. Any other questions before we get into tasting? All right. Let's taste wine. Who's take the appearance? Come on, somebody.
I'll do it.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. I guess this wine would be clear. It's not hazy.
Yeah. I would call this clear for all intents and purposes. But,
yeah.
You know, I can also tell this wine has not been like filtered. It's not like, but
this is pretty deep in intensity.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's deep. Yeah, I can't really see anything through the center. Yeah, I'll call this deep myself. Color?
And the color is like outside of a ripe plum. Very deep color.
Yeah, there's some purpliness running through here. I would still call this ruby, but there's some blueness here too. I definitely think there's some ruby with a purple thrown in there. Somewhere between purple and ruby is what I call this.
Yeah, it's a very dark wine.
Yeah, for sure. Any other observations?
No, it just is a very dark wine, dark purple wine.
Yep. Awesome.
Wine.
Hold on to that adjective dark, because I think this is what comes up, what is going to continue to come up. Because to me, whenever I think of a volcanic soil, this is what I think about: dark, brooding, and this is going to continue to come. Excellent. You get to pick the next person for the nose.
Okay, next to me is Christopher.
Mr. McPherson.
All right. Let's see. I would say this wine is clean.
This one is clean. So
Definitely rustic, but I'm not getting any like, funky plain with fall notes. But
100%.
Intensity, I'm getting it about solid like 3 inches off the glass. I'm gonna say medium plus.
Yep. That's exactly what I said. Yeah, mine is like all the way out of here. So yeah, that's like, what's that, 3 inches? It's pretty expressive. Yeah, I call this medium plus intense aromas of. What do you got?
I could maybe go like a rose or violet, some blossom notes of like a darker flower, but it really, no green fruit, no citrus, no stone. It's really in the red and black fruit.
Yeah, I that floral part, I definitely think there's some like purpley blue flower here going on. I get violet for sure, but I always get violet with the Gamay. That's just some of the things that I get, and I 100% agree. No real green, citrus, stone, tropical. Where are we here in a red and black fruit?
Yeah, I think I'm getting more black fruit than red, but yeah, like currant, bramble, black cherry. Maybe some like raspberry and red cherry.
Yeah, are you getting some red? Like to me, this is like all black here. Maybe like again, is that semi-carbonic that's happening? There's some of that black fruit that's really like lifted and bright and high tone. But to me, the fruit quality here is all black. Like I don't get red fruit here.
Okay. Yeah, the plums definitely.
Yeah.
Like black plums.
Yeah.
Berries. Yeah.
100%. Exactly. The nature of the fruit. Is this fresh? Is this ripe, underripe, overripe?
I think
Candy?
definitely fresh and ripe. I think the semi-carbonic, like the slight high tone stuff is like kind of messing with my perception of it. But
Yeah.
I'm definitely, it's nothing like, definitely not underripe, and I'm not getting any like stewed or you know, candied or yeah, cooked fruits. It's
Agreed.
very ripe, fresh.
Yeah. I think the fruit here is really ripe. There's nothing underripe about this. And if anything, I get like the fresh fruit, but also like, I don't know. I guess we don't get a lot of blackberry flavored candies, but like if I could imagine that, like that's what I get here. It's also like a black fruit, black plummy, like just kind of like a candy thing. So high tone fruit is a fresh fruit, but really ripe. Any herbaceous, any savory things, spice, minerality.
I definitely get the minerality, and I don't know if I'm just suggestible because you said, it gives it a mineral backbone, but no, I definitely get some rock on this.
100%. To me, this is earthy. This is like crushed rock that like whatever you think of as like black rock. I always say this and it kind of drives some people crazy because like to me, I just say black rock because it makes sense in my head. I have certain profile that I think of when I think of black rock, but they're like, what does that mean, black rock? But like, I don't know. To me, there's like a dark, rocky, like dusty kind of a thing going on here. Oh shit! And I just spilled wine all over my computer. Give me 1 sec. But yes, minerality for sure. Talk about secondary and tertiary.
Did she write to us?
Yeah. Oh shit! I gotta change. Close this. Sorry.
All right, I'm back. Any secondary? Any tertiary?
Not really. This is really living in the fresh fruit primary. It's hitting one note, but it's hitting it well.
Yeah, agreed. There's no really secondary, tertiary. This is all primary, very fresh, all of that. Excellent. You get to pick that.
Like that makes sense. It's a super young.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, very young. You get to pick the next person for the panel.
Sara Fuentes, because she's off mute anyway.
Oh no, I did it again. Less of a disaster this time.
I don't know. I appreciated it last time.
Right, thanks. All right. This wine is dry.
Mm-hmm.
Medium plus acid. It's on there.
Yeah,
like not at first, but at the end, kind of. I feel it comes really.
Yeah, somewhere between medium and medium plus. I'm leaning more towards medium with this one, but yeah, it's not low. But yeah, somewhere between medium plus is what I'm getting. Let's go with tannin.
Medium plus tannin. Medium tannins, actually. Medium plus.
There's definitely some tannin here, right?
Yeah.
The fact that this is 2/3 carbonic, yet there's this amount of tannin. I'll call this about medium for me. The fact that there's this much tannin on there, again, is that volcanic soil. The grapevines that are grown on, and this is the same thing with the limestone as well. Anytime it's grown on any kind of like rocky, infertile soil, it tends to get a lot of these tannin kind of like structural components develop. Less so fruit than the kind of like the structural part. So the fact that this has, like I mentioned, semi-carbonic is all about extracting less from the grape berries. yet it has this much tannin is because of that volcanic soil. So yeah, I call this medium as well. Alcohol.
It tastes a little highish to me. I'm gonna guess like 13.5. It's a little.
So
What is it?
so I cheated. I know what this says already, and I've never. So this says 14.
Oh, is it 13.5?
Is it 13.5?
No, that was what I guessed.
Yeah.
It's close.
But
Warm.
I actually don't believe that it's 14. Again, the Mario makers have about a 1% ratio plus or minus. So this can be, 13% calling it 14%. This can be 15% being called 14%. But every year that I've tried this wine, and I've known this wine for a very long time, it's always been 14%. I don't think they just changed the label because it's somewhere in there.
Butter, they don't want to go in there. It's all set.
Yeah, I just never. To me, this wine does not drink like 14%. I don't know about you guys. You did mention it drinks a little hot, but to me, this is not a 14% wine. Like this at most is maybe 13.5. But maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys' perception is a little different, but to me, this wine has always been right in that like 13%, maybe 13.5. In certain vintages, warmer vintages, maybe it feels a little more hot, meaning a little more alcoholic, but it's definitely not 14. Like this, I don't trust that it is actually 14. If this the lab data was available on this thing, I will bet my money that it's not 14%. But for all intents and purposes, we can only go by what we have. So it says 14%, which is still so kind of medium, so medium plus into what we're going into. But yeah. Body.
I feel like it's got some weight. I'd put it medium plus.
Yeah. I think this is like I don't know, 3% milk. I don't know. It's a medium.
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah. 2%. Yeah.
Doesn't feel that heavy to me. And this is another part of the reason why I think it's not 14%. Like wines that are in 14%, there's that much alcohol, like it will have a body that's coming in. But to me, like this strikes me as like a medium. This to me strikes as a 2%. I'm not saying there's no weight here, but it's like it's like over the top. So to me, this is about like a medium 2% is what I'm getting. Moose, we don't have to talk about flavor intensity.
Yeah, I did forget it in the fridge, so like it's a little chillier than I think it should be. So that may be why it feels heavier potentially.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Flavor profile. I feel like Chris did a great job. Like I feel like there's a lot.
Yeah, I think this one is very expressive. I don't think it's not shy at all. And in general, Gamay is a very expressive aromatic grape variety. So yeah, I'm gonna call this medium plus as well. Well, you didn't call it, but I'm calling it medium plus.
Yeah, sorry. I was like, I'm so focused on the flavors. But yeah, I agree with what Chris said with the kind of like black fruit, the like rocks.
100%. Black fruit, to me, this is violet, black fruit, both fresh as well as high toned, really ripe. Nothing underripe about it. No greenness. And a lot of it is also clay, that basalt soil that we talked about. Whenever it's grown on a soil that has some clay on it, this kind of fruit character really comes out. And it helps it with also ripening because the clay also helps with heat retention as well as water retention. So the fruit really develops. So all this, the fact that it's grown on this like really infernal volcanic soil, but the fact that it has this much fruit is because there's on average 25% of clay in that soil, basalt. But yeah, high fruit, like I said.
Yeah, a lot of like
black fruit. Yeah, ton of black fruit, violet. Do you get like minerality, kind of like what Chris is talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like rocky, crushed, like black rock, volcanic rock, all of that. Like there's a ton of minerality running through here, which I really appreciate. Do you get any secondary, tertiary?
No.
Me neither. To me, this is all in here. A
Um,
little more on the palates, more so than I do on the nose. Maybe you can convince me there's a little bit of like a peppery, kind of like spicy thing going on here. But really, still, this is touch of floral, all black fruit with crushed rock.
Yeah.
Just ton of rock is what we're talking about. The finish. How long is it like?
Medium plus.
Agreed. It's not short at all. All this about medium, verging on medium plus. Yeah, somewhere between medium and plus. Absolutely. Conclusion. Bring it home for us. How good is this wine? Justify.
I would say it is good. It's a good wine. A lot of stuff is probably in the medium category, kind of was straight down the line. Body, flavor, intensity. A lot of these other things were all pretty much around medium. And I would say drink it now because it doesn't have, I don't think, quite as much acid, and so much of it is fruity.
It's a lot of fruit, right? So, all right. So let's talk about quality for a second. Balance. Do you think this wine is balanced?
Yes.
Concentration. What do we call on the nose, or what do we call on the palate?
Medium.
Do you call it medium, or do you call it medium plus?
Medium plus.
Yeah. So medium plus on the nose, medium plus on the palate. So concentration, medium plus. Complexity. I mean, we had blue flowers, all black fruit, crushed rocks, maybe some spice, but no secondary, no tertiary. What would you call it?
Medium.
Medium. Length. What do you call
it? Medium plus.
Yeah. Somewhere between medium and plus. So we have balanced, medium plus concentration, medium complexity, medium to medium plus length. So when you take an average of all of that, we're landing somewhere between medium to medium plus in there. Depending on how generous you want to be, you can call it very good. This is good, but being generous, I'm going to call this very good. But I think it's perfectly a justified call to call this good because we had a bunch of mediums in there as well. Mm-hmm. As a level of drinking and ageability, tannin and acid, you called out. Acid was like what, medium or so, right? Mm-hmm. Tannin, we called it about medium, but you got some tannin. You even called it medium plus at one point. I do think there's some tannin in here, medium. So there's some decent structural backbone, like medium acid, medium tannin, right? Not crazy, but decent. Now, the flavor-wise, we have concentration-wise, we called it what? Medium plus on the nose, medium plus on the palate. Complexity-wise, we called it medium, right? Not medium plus. So it has all this concentration for all this primary to go somewhere. The only thing that we call solidly medium was a complexity, meaning as this wine ages, some of these primary fruit will develop into non-primary fruit or non-fruit flavors and aromas, adding more complexity to the wine, which is the only thing that we call medium, solidly medium. So in my opinion, I do think there's some potential for aging here, but I don't think it's meant to be aged for a long time. Right? Because it's not super high in acid, it's not super high in tannin. So I would say drink it over the next 3 to 5 years. I would say come check back at it about 2-year mark, 3-year mark, see how it goes. But I think you hit it with no problem. It will maybe add a little more complexity. It won't be just all primary by the time you hit year mark, I don't know, 4 or 5, somewhere around there is what I would say. So this one. Cool. Any questions about anything that we just went over? Any disagreements? Any comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So whole cluster.
Yeah.
You mentioned how they use whole cluster in this process. What's the difference between the whole cluster process with this versus what we had with that Argentinian wine?
Yes, excellent question.
That
So-
tastes a lot different.
Yes, excellent question. So whole cluster in a carbonic maceration case, even though it is whole cluster, right? Even though it has stems, all that kind of leafy green part, vine part of grapevine, the whole point of it is a carbonic is to kind of help not extract all of that, the phenolic parts of the grapevine. The reason why it's whole cluster in carbonic situation is that as the berries pop, the juice can actually just flow through because these stems create more space so they can just flow through quickly. And that's the whole point. As opposed to that Argentinian one you're talking about, which is a maturation method. So they actually crush the grapes, all the juices come out, and they soak the stems all inside in the juice the whole time. Right? So it's just extracting a lot more the phenolics and green flavor, savory component out of it, as opposed here, the stems are not there necessarily for flavor or aromas. It's just more for create space for juice to just kind of flow out.
Right. You mentioned this is like a blend of a regular maceration process, so they just used grapes for that.
Yeah, so what I would assume is that they probably put like whatever they get in tonnage, 2/3 of it, they put it on semi-carbonate, they do 1/3 in a regular maceration method, and they blend it later.
And the 1/3 is just pure grapes, no stems.
Exactly, yeah, so destemmed, yeah, exactly, is what I would think is what's happening. But yeah, so that 1/3 is all about that kind of like that fruit. Probably all the non-carbonic fruit that we're getting is probably from that 1/3. All of the high tone fruit that we're getting is from that 2/3 that went through carbonic. Excellent question though. Yeah, exactly. It's both whole cluster, yet they have complete different stylistic expression. Why is that? Excellent question. Any other questions?
I had one question with regards to, I probably should ask it when you prompted us earlier, the carbonic maceration or semi-carbonic maceration, and when you're having a conversation with a sommelier regarding a wine list, right?
Mhm.
Is that the type of thing that you would say is like, is this, I don't know, is this Gamay? Like if I'm looking at a Beaujolais list, for example, I know those are all going to be Gamay, right? So
yeah.
I could say to them, like, which of these are done by this production method? And then
100%.
that's basically what you, okay.
This, if you ever came into my restaurant and you say, you look at my Beaujolais list and you say, which one of these are semi-carbonic and which one of these are carbonic? I'm like, this bitch knows what she's talking about. All right, let me see what she's into. I'd be like, are you into bright red poppy, fruit, or are you into like a darker, little more tannin structural thing? Like, do you want a little more like pound juice? You want like party juice, or you want something you want like sip on slowly? Like it tells me everything. Yeah, because it's two complete different styles.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just to clarify, that those two techniques can be used on all sorts of different grapes, not just this guy.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
So this is a criticism that carbonic maceration gets, which is that by focusing or putting so much emphasis on the fruit itself, you are actually taking away the terroir. So no matter where in the world the fruit comes from, if you put it through carbonic, it kind of tastes the same. It all kind of comes out tasting poppy and high tone and all of that, which is delicious, right? Easy to drink, it's fruity, it's great. But the idea is that it kind of kills off this sense of the terroir, the concept of terroir. So a lot of Rhone producer, a lot of young natural wine producers that move to Rhone, parts of Rhone to make wine, they were putting through a lot of that through carbonic. And people are like, well, I couldn't tell you. This is like they would do Carignan carbonic. They were like, I couldn't tell you this is from Rhone, this is from Beaujolais, this is from where. Like it could be anywhere, right? Delicious nonetheless, but it kind of loses a sense of place. So, any other questions? Did you guys like this wine, by the way? Just out of curiosity. This wine reminds me not as a natty with a capital N, perhaps, but this reminds me a lot of the Fox wine.
I was
Hey,
about
you'll-
to say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the cat or the fox or whatever it was.
And that Fox wine is Cote Brewery, which is volcanic soil Gamay. This is why it reminds me a lot of that. See, this is how you connect dots. You're like, oh, volcanic soil, this is what it does, you know? And it has a lot of that. It's not as natty again, but yeah, has a lot of the similar vibes going on. Did anybody not like this one? Just out of curiosity? To me, this is like a crowd pleaser. Like if I was running a restaurant, like I'll put this on there just to like anybody who likes wine would probably like this. All right, this flavor's favorite game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? Cote Forez, kind of a small, unknown, right? $8, $25, $30. Okay, 25. Pre-tariff pricing. Yeah, excellent question. Yeah. 2024, 2020. Wow, this makes me happy. So this is kind of also the reason why it pays to get out of like the main region, right? This is in a Cote de Forez, which nobody really knows, Auvergne, which nobody really knows, but it has the basically same kind of a vibe to some of the Beaujolais that we enjoy. This on a retail shelf would be $19.50. So for under 20 bucks to get a quality that we call very good, good to very good, right? With a 3 to 5 year shelf life or aging potential. You know, as Beaujolais continues to get more expensive every year, I don't know. I think there's a lot of argument for wines like this. So yeah, it's $19.50, under 20 bucks. Any questions? Excellent, excellent. Also, I drank a beer right before the tasting, and I really have to pee. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go pee. You guys on the cheers.
It's still recording, so like I also don't want to say anything. I want to ask like all the feds how they're doing, but it's like
I'm totally side chatting.
It's like
All right,
side chatting sanity checks.
what did I miss? What did I miss?
no, it's still recording, so like